Hello again. Welcome to another episode of The Works. I'm Jim.
I'm Diane.
I'm going to start out with the dramatic, or at least attempt it this way. This episode's called Social Security is Doomed, and there'll be nothing left for us. Now, let me explain. We recently have talked about second, third careers, right? You know, as we're getting ready to, from a demographic perspective, we're at that age where, you know, we've been doing what we've done for 30 years. You know, I posed the question, what do you do, you know, for that second job?
Right. And sometimes it's a second job once you retire. Sometimes it might be that your job is now obsolete or there was a layoff. And at this age, do you try to find something else to do? It's kind of hard to get picked up as an employee at this age because they'd rather hire younger people. So, yeah, sometimes you've got to do your second stage. You've got to figure out your second career, or like you said, maybe even your third. And
I guess what brings this about, and I guess the reason I started out so melodramatic, that Social Security is doomed, that if you look at what we've recently talked about, to your point, what are the careers that have gone away? We made fun of, you know, back in the early 1900s, you know, there was nobody that's, you know, ice maker. That
right.
Career is gone. And I was, you know, crying over spilt milk that you know, a lot of folks are getting laid off that are IT people. But does that mean that IT is going to be the next thing, right? So we kind of, and obviously we've been toying with this whole social media thing. We've got, you know, I think we're all enamored with, and we all turn to social media for entertainment to a certain degree. I mean, it's proven itself that things that, you know, Mr. Beast is famous not because he's been on TV or a sitcom or in a frickin' movie. He's famous for YouTube. And so, you know, as we maybe are embarking on our other career, so to speak, again, that demographic. So, you know, it was interesting, and the reason I jumped off so quickly is that we've had probably more feedback from the episode where we talked about jobs that are going to be and or obsolete, and or how do you, the younger group, and how does, you know,
anticipate the next thing?
Sure. Is traditional education, you know, at one point, you know, we had talked and said that, you know, a couple of years ago, especially during COVID, you know, the trades were a big in demand. Nobody was going to, you know, do auto mechanic stuff. And of course, certainly maybe that industry we thought was going to be overhauled with the advent of all of us doing electric cars, which we know that's not going to happen anymore.
Right.
And so when we were talking about those jobs that are obsolete, we've had a lot of folks reach out to us and you know, and we'll probably continue the conversation with some experts who pointed out some of the things that we had shared and wanted to expand upon those ideas that we proposed.
Right. And their experiences. And you know, one person is helping people navigate that in education and how to adapt and how AI can help these individuals. And you know, another person was in the creative space and how they have navigated that atmosphere. So, it should be interesting.
I guess, I liken it to when we all like to use data, or we like to think that we're using, you know, statistics to either prove our point. And so here's a quick couple of things that I threw together. So if you look at right now in the world or in the United States, that people over 50, so 50 till you're dead, there's about 60 million of us. People that are under 50, 113 million. So of the population that exists today, about 300 million. So if you look at that middle point, my reasoning for breaking it down this way is if you think about who's paying into Social Security for all of those that are going to be collecting it. So, right, it's those that are 64 and over. Well, 65 and over, technically you can have your, you know, Social Security. Right now that number stands at 51 million. And soon, you know, as again, that population ages out,
Right.
My point is, who's going to be filling those shoes? If you look at the demographic of 15 to 49, that's only 55 million people. It's almost half as many currently that are getting ready to and or starting to collect. And then if you have half of that number,
not even contributing.
Well, so here's my point. Let's take half of the number that let's pretend all of them were contributing. Here's the point to what you're alluding to. We already know that generation doesn't work full time.
Right.
They're in social media or doing these, again, other, I'm going to say off the wall jobs, but jobs that, let's face it, aren't the mainstream. And are they doing their 1099s and paying into FICA? Because that was what we
right.
We'd shared when we were relaying these statistics before about jobs.
Right.
And right now things in the economy are bad. I mean, inflation's bad. People aren't working. People are getting laid off. And so, this whole other mindset of, going out and doing it on your own, that's truly, I mean, again, being positive, that's what this country's founded on.
Right. That's the positive. But how soon will we catch up with making sure that people do contribute to Social Security?
And I guess that's...
And maybe that's
the only
where
reason
we get somebody else in here to talk about how they navigate it. Maybe they truly are contributing to Social Security. It's not our world yet, so we don't know how that actually works.
Right. And yeah, that's a good point. And I guess from a whole tax perspective, regardless of if they're doing their 1099s and
Right. And I know that's not sexy talk for a podcast, but it is worth knowing. It's things that keep us up at night, trying to figure out retirement, Social Security, and the state of our economy. It's interesting to me.
Now, and then on a side note, as far as demographics, and it's interesting because it proves a little bit some of the feedback we've gotten, I think, are coming from our demo, if you will, that 50 plus, at least my impression of it. And it's always important to understand who you're talking to. Now, this is a completely off the wall angle, but I've always been enamored with Britney Spears, as you know.
Yeah.
And of course, in my 30s when she was 18, that
it was a little creepy. But you actually listened to her music.
Hold on. So, but and this is going to be my argument for why it wasn't even creepy then, but it's even less creepy now considering the age difference, right? That's the big, and people talk about it today, right? And I know it's the running joke. Older men going for the younger woman, vice versa, and But at that time, much younger, technically, Britney is going to turn 45 this year. I'm 50. I will be turning 59 this year. Technically, she will be in our demo.
Right, so it's not creepy anymore.
Not anymore. I just thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah, see? What was that?
That was a sound effect.
Of a zipper.
No, it was, and it's odd that it came at that. I recently rearranged the audio board, and as you can tell, I forgot that was sitting on one of my tracks. I didn't play it. Well, obviously, I had it out there. So
I thought it was because you're, thinking about Britney and the zipper went down.
Actually, okay. Well, we were talking about changing careers, and for me, this, I had a career in radio before, and I was going to recant you with some of my old bits, and one of them that, again, timing and perspective, people don't get stuff in the mail, right? And, of course, back in my day, there was this idea of, hey, let's go check the gym mailbag, and my joke or my shtick then was, let's take a peek at what folks have been writing in about, and then it's the gym mailbag, and then the zipper would play.
Okay.
That was the joke, and yeah, sorry about that. I thought I had muted that. So.
Yeah, I was afraid that my chair was creaking, or
Well,
maybe maybe it was gas that I didn't know was emitted.
Or worse yet, we just upgraded phones, and I swear to God, maybe we're at that age too where it's the jitterbug.
Yeah, we need just a flip phone.
Well, it's not that we're not sophisticated enough. It's just I'll be damned if all of a sudden the world changes and you have to undo everything.
Right.
And now it makes noises for shit that I never thought it was supposed to make noises for. And if I have to tell Gemini to stop listening, I just don't understand.
Right. With each software update, they undo all the settings, and you're not aware of it.
So yeah, so I guess the general point was appreciate everyone and their comments, and in particular, it'd be nice to get some experts. You know, I keep reaching out to some of those fellow YouTubers that were excited, or again, kind of what brought about this whole idea of us creating a conversation and looking for advice. But maybe we'll have some experts tell us about, hey, what are those things to think about or consider as we had, kind of alluded to, the world's changing, and maybe we have to change what our mindset or skill sets are to adapt to that.
Right.
Survival of the fittest. I know one other thing we wanted to get at, and I'm wondering if I've got any other embedded sound effects to be afraid of, but I know it's this time of the year, garage sales become kind of a big thing.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so you wanted to talk about...
Well, no, I had no idea, because we've been in North Carolina for 15 years, and they have had for the last 14 years this thing called 301 Endless Yard Sale, where it's 100 miles of garage sales located along Route 301, which, wow, that's huge.
And so forgive me. So, again, keep up with the ADHD jump, but when we're talking about changing jobs, career changes, things are up. One of the reasons that we talked about this or thought about this in show prep was one of the things that we dabbled in for a while is kind of the side hustle. That was a big thing 5-10 years ago.
The side hustle.
Yeah, part-time job.
But for a second career, yeah.
Was what we did was we would attend auctions.
Estate auctions,
which again, so I guess we pose the question for anyone who has any feedback. What is easier to deal with, a garage sale, haggling versus at a auction? It's no really haggling other than you're bidding against somebody openly for an item that you're expressing interest in.
Right. Well, it feels more dignified. You have garage sales where, you put out a $100 item, you mark it to $10, and somebody will inherently ask for $5, and you're like, it's $100 item, and I'm only asking $10. I know, but see, the problem is in their mind that I guess the way I perceive that is that, hey, this is their junk. I know the cliche, hey, yeah, you're supposed to barter, just like at flea markets. You're supposed to barter. I hate bartering.
Well, that's why, unfortunately, it was a big deal for us to do one year, because nonstop of my fighting this, not just internal monologue, but you. Well, I'm going to list this for this, and then you would turn around and basically have that same argument. Well, you know that they're going to ask for half, and it's like, okay, well, then why are we doing all this? And it was a hassle.
It was a hassle.
I guess the worst part that nobody anticipates or thinks about, where are people going to park?
Yeah, especially
if you have one
you're
yourself.
Yeah.
But this, not to again sidetrack. So the idea of
the 100 mile.
100 mile. So for 100 miles. Well, there was interesting history too. It's along Route 301.
Right, which snakes. It's almost parallel to 95. Sometimes it's on one side, sometimes it's on the other. It like snakes around it. But so once 95 was built, anybody that's traveling, they will exit and shop along things that are off of 95. So this whole started, and it's actually in Selma. Is the start off point.
Is that North Carolina?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Oh, so, and yes, forgive me, all of it is in North Carolina.
All of it is in North Carolina. It's the counties of Johnston, Halifax, Wilson, Nash, and Harnett counties. So it goes from Weldon, North Carolina, down to Dunn, North Carolina. But, so, yeah, garage sales drive me crazy. Estate sales, like you said, at least you're bidding if it's an auction versus an estate sale. Sometimes things are just listed. But our idea of a second career, retirement career was something that we dealt with when my mother was terminally ill, and Dad has memory issues, that we needed to sell their house. And the idea was we were just going to take enough furniture for Dad to move into an apartment, and then everything in the house needs to be cleared out. Now, all of you that have aging parents, especially if they've been in their house for decades, there's a lot of extra stuff in there. And to clear it out is a lot of work. So I contacted a local auctioneer that see if she wanted to come out and do an estate sale. To which she told me, why would I do that? Help you clean out the house and have a realtor come in, and that's where the meat and potatoes are, that they get to sell it. So if she's going to do all the work of organizing and selling the contents, she wants a crack at selling the house. Now, the house was not an auction. It was, it was a regular listing. But she had turned us on to the idea that this turnkey moment, you're dealing with ailing parents, and to try and list everything on Facebook Marketplace, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Yeah. And you're emotionally vested and tied into things, and you might not want to let things go. But she truly made it easy. We just, off you go.
Yeah, and I guess what added to the insult to injury in that situation is truly poor financial planning. That, and we talked about predatory lending when it comes to these kids in college. The fact that a 75-year-old working part-time at Lowe's could refinance their home,
a 30-year mortgage,
like for the fifth time, and the reason he was refinancing it was because the escrow payment got too high for the taxes. So they, and it's like, I understand there's no, you can't discriminate based on age for, in banking practice, but I mean the reality of letting somebody who's 75 into a 30-year note is nuts. Right. Because there's not going to be any PMI. At that point, this was like their fifth refi.
I think it was their sixth.
Okay, fifth, sixth, yeah, 220, 221, whatever it takes. But
they owed more than what their original mortgage was.
And then but the sad part is, all things considered, because this was the benchmark, what they bought the home for and what they got out of it, ultimately at the end was barely that. And that puts stress on everyone. Yeah. It puts stress on the kids because that planning wasn't done. And, from a where are they going to go situation, because at that point it was who's going to pay for and how are they going to pay for their assisted living. And, in most cases, the way it was once you retire, that home's paid off. As a matter of fact, that's where from a, inheriting wealth, inheriting wealth, family, in the, keeping things in the family where, and that mentality isn't around anymore. There's no concept of passing anything down in this particular case. And I'm not saying this just because I'm not bitter. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that mentality has fallen on a lot of folks. And maybe in their example too is you had to go take you had another career once you retired because Social Security wasn't going to be enough. The pension wasn't going to be enough. You know, and so, you still have to make, ends meet. Now, did it make sense for them to have the size home that they did at that point? You're supposed to be downsizing.
Right.
But, yeah, again, you get into that battle with, what financial planner is going to tell you what. But, but back to your point, one of the things that we had dabbled with and had a decent amount of success was going to these. And there is a huge difference between an online auction and an in-person auction.
Yeah.
And it's we befriended a couple of local auctioneers who had that situation where they had a home that they basically could sell. They literally had everything, and the amount of time and effort it goes into to do that, as you point out, they're not making a lot. Well, I was going to say it's interesting how that business works. What
Well-
they make on their dealer premium on top of the fact that they're getting
Right.
a portion of the stuff that
Right.
they're selling
So,
it for.
like with my parents, they had to pay a fee. I don't know, it was like $5,000 for them to come in and hold the estate auction. So there was a fee.
and
Then they get
a percentage.
a premium, the buyer's premium.
Well, that comes from the bidder, but they also get a back end of it
They get 40%.
of what they sell it for,
Yes.
regardless
So-
of profit. It's just
Right.
if
So
I sold this.
you think, wow, that's not worth it because
Well,
the
there's money in
$100 item that the family's getting bub kissed, but the hours that they spend categorizing and organizing and cleaning and presenting, it's absolutely worth it, and it's absolutely worth it for the peace of mind that you just
Well, I
you
guess, see,
turn it over and you're done.
Well, it's funny that you remember it that way because I guess I'm looking at it from the reality in that case with your parents. It was online, so there was a lot of picture staging, all that went on. What I'm talking about in the old-fashioned,
The almonds, they go into the store or into
you
the
go
house.
into the home, you go into a room, it's amazing, and they pick something up. You want this, great. If not, you move on.
Right.
And that, even though it's a day's effort to get through an entire house and everything that's there, it's bing bang. And as a matter of fact, that's how you're cleaning out the house in that
Right.
particular case, right? You don't have to. But it's interesting because I think
Depends on the clientele.
Are those types of auctions more successful for the auctioneer versus the one that takes the time, stages it, photographs it, and because there's that longevity in the online portion of it, because things stay out there for a while, you get to shop.
Right.
Whereas the in-person stuff, it's truly more impromptu.
Right.
And what bugs me is part of the fun of going in person is again the excitement of seeing something that that's
And you don't have time to research it. But again, it depends on the clientele. If it's a country home and somebody's been in the house for 75 years, there's going to be a lot of junk. Not to be judgy, but there's going to be things that you would
Sure.
not want to. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. You're not going to want to list these old blankets that have been in the barn closet forever. But at these in-person auctions, people will bid $5 on it. They're gonna, they're gonna do whatever they want with it. It doesn't have to be clean.
I think it's funny. I think we've had a lot of luck with the if you will, potluck. I can think
Mystery boxes, yeah,
well,
the garage boxes.
The entire garage. So here's a great example, and even to this day, we're making every time I sell a fuse, I'm making $16. So going through this one lot of, it's just garage. I mean, it's everything from the person's garage. It was boxes of screws, but things that here's a box of door stoppers. Here's a box of door knobs. Here's a box of locks. Here's a box of GCFI outlets.
Right.
All these things that you're saying, well, if I tried to piecemeal them, and the one thing that was kind of great about it, as I've complained about this, when you're putting your little workshop together, for whatever reason, I remember, or at least distinctly, a memory of mine growing up with my father, and everyone had their, a set of tools, right? Your father was much more dedicated to that because he was home every night. But the thing that bothered me was, and you were part of these projects where you can't buy a generic. Give me 10 screws of all different sizes. That only comes from collecting it all these years.
Right.
You go out and then you're inundated or overwhelmed with when you go to the screw aisle,
Right.
and everything's in counts of 100 for 3 1/4 inch, wood screw. Well, I just want a box of generic screws. But
Right.
So it was great that some of these garage lots that we ran across.
Those were the easiest things for you to sell. I mean, some of it takes a while, but I mean,
So I'm looking at
wow.
this bag. Well, there was a bag, literally 110 GM car fuses, and I don't know the model number. I got an eBay page list. I've had them listed now for the better part of 4 years, and it seems like at least 3 times a month I'm shipping out one of these damn fuses that the entire garage lot was like $20.
Right.
And I'm now making $20 each time I sell a fuse. And I've been doing that for the last 3 years. But to your point, there was just a little bit of everything in there.
Mm-hmm.
We've done well with trains. I was shocked at how
your trains
that model trains do.
Right.
And again, certainly because we got them at a decent price, but what we were selling them for was 4 to 5 times what we paid for each individual. But and that could be a fun sort of
second
side,
career.
third, career.
Yeah, you do the auction because you're good with speaking and you can speak quickly.
No, that doesn't.
And
that's
then
not what my point was.
The IT setting things up. I could do the real estate part. I can, like the South Park episode, make sure I lean back in my picture.
Right. But so the garage sale. When is this 100-mile?
June 19th and 20th, 7 to 5 each day.
Now, do they have? See, I guess here's what bugs me because, again, when we were there's an auction.zip.
Oh,
I don't know if
that
it's
lists them all.
that lists auctions in your area. I've tried the damn garage sale flea market one where it advertises. And honestly, there isn't a good one out there. Maybe there is now, but for years, even for what we had the most success with, and again, because I'm not on social media like you are, the marketplace seems to be the only place to go
that's where people
get basic
sell.
information about, garage sales. But
and that's a whole nother thing, As much as I hate garage sales, having to deal with Facebook Marketplace, you can list something, for $5. Again, something that's worth hundreds. You just want it out of your house, so you figure for $5. All the scams that come in, I'll Zelle you, and then you Zelle me back, and it works out better, just free to pick up. Just get it out of here.
It's a shame that
it's come to that.
Well, okay. So here's why hasn't AI put a clamp on all that shit? Is as much as that's supposed to help us, and so, and I think I raved about this. One thing I noticed that AI does for us is the transcript thing. I don't type all that shit out. AI does it. It does a pretty decent job. We complained about it once where it said I said the F word and I didn't.
Right.
But that's, again, a practical use of AI, or at least in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Here we have all these scams going, and these scammers get clever because don't you have to create a freaking Facebook page?
Yeah.
In order to list things on Marketplace. And I still to this day can't get a Facebook page. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Maybe get shut down.
The other thing that happens on Facebook, that a lot of these events, you have garage sales, you have estate sales, you have auctions, you have flea markets, you have things online, you have festivals. So on Facebook, somebody a legitimate, like the Lincoln County Apple Festival, they will, there's a link to sign up to be a vendor. It's online. And even when they post on Facebook that don't forget to send in your applications, people will comment saying, email me and we have a few spots left. And the Apple Festival will say, these are scams. The only way to sign up is through our event page. But yet, 2 days later, somebody else is doing the same damn thing. They're pretending to be these legitimate events, and they're not. It's awful.
Yeah. Well, going back to how we started this whole conversation, the idea of that other career, or what I'm enamored with is the folks that have basically become celebrities off of social media. Unlike in the classic days where you had to be, a TV or a movie star to be, quote, famous, and be an influencer that way, right? I guess it was. I guess if you think about it, that the term influencer really comes from the fact that these folks know that the folks realize that they have. When you have X number of followers, you have power.
A captive audience, yeah.
And if you think about it, some of the, if you've got X number of listeners, viewers, and then from a corporation perspective, make that decision that, hey, it's better than going to content's content, no matter how you think about it. I guess for me, again, I still struggle with the notion of, we grew up, the average TV show had 30, 40 million viewers a week. If you think, so you compare that, and today, cable, what's on TV today, Survivor is example. Survivor, again, big network show. They're thrilled with 4 million a week. Do you realize that if a show had 4 million back in the 80s, they would have been canceled after the first season? My point is that those that are garnering 100,000 viewers or listeners, 200,000, that's not piddly anymore. That's competing with what you're watching on cable.
Right.
That's those numbers, and it seems like it's, I don't want to say easy, but when you put content out there that's entertaining or informative, that people are dying for good content. Because I get my point. Corporations that want to advertise, there's nothing good on TV to advertise anymore.
True.
So here's, again, let me compare. I was doing some looking up beforehand. We're a big fan of The Pit, which, if you think about it, was like ER. It's got that same dude that was in ER, and again was on a network. This, not saying HBO or Max isn't a network, they certainly are, but they're pulling they're successful being renewed again. 1.7 million views a week. That's not a lot.
No,
I mean it is, but
compared to what everybody else is watching.
Because again, from a captive audience perspective, I guess again, I still am trying to get over that where the Super Bowl every year, at least 100 million viewers. And keep in mind, and this is why I brought these stats up, in our country today, 350 million people. That means everybody that's got a screen, 1 in 3 people in this country are watching the Super Bowl.
Right.
Every year, big game, people are spending money on it, right? And if you think about the fact that any given day, less than 100,000 people are watching any show. It's we're so scattered in what's out there, and it to be a Mr. Beast, to have the millions that you have, which honestly I don't even know what his message is. To be honest with you, he's got Beast bars and he gives away. He's got stupid games on. We tried to watch the one on Amazon. I mean, it's clever if you're part of it,
right?
But I guess that's where. How is it that? Because I complained about this, and we really need to do the whole hot sauce series, owning your own company.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it all. You can't be producer, writer, director, star. How do you do every component that requires
time?
You and I sitting in front of a microphone, with my audio recording application and this little mixer board, and other than my screw up with the zipper today, it's a 2-person show. Right. That's it.
Right.
When you start getting into, and we're certainly we've teased the fact that we've got the YouTube link out there, and I think we do deserve to stick out just the camera up, and it's not like we're going to perform or anything. I mean, I guess I could, but I don't have anything to really juggle.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, sure, there you go. But yeah, that was, we look forward to having anyone on that like I said, we recently had reached out to us to kind of help promote some of the ideas that we had, answer some of the questions that we had, and I think that'd be kind of a nice thing to have.
I think so.
Better than listening to the two of us drone on. It's informative.
It is.
It's
it
content.
Is. Well,
it's content, and that's what the goal is.
And it makes me go, So, I mean, that's just me, part of my day-to-day.
Okay.
I'm curious like a cat. That's why they call me Whiskers.
So I know you did want to talk about, well, I guess from a garage sale perspective, we hit flea markets. Do we hit flea markets versus farmers markets versus garage sales? I think the only thing, farmers markets around here in the South, it's, weekend thing in a parking lot. It's where you get your best produce.
And it used to be, farmers markets were produce and farm goods. Hence, farmers market. Some of them end up to be a little janky, and it's more flea market-ish, where, somebody's selling, diamond art and arts and crafts and things from their garage and MLMs and...
Well, yeah, and I guess, well, you run into that no matter where you go, whether it's the kiosk at the mall back in the day when people all... But I guess, and then maybe this is why we should get into the series on hot sauce, owning a company. When we first started our hot sauce company, the one idea, or at least the notion of, well, how do you sell it? Where do you go? We've got it online. We've got it in stores locally. But the first channel, if you will, the first
was a farmer's market.
Was a farmer's market. And so I'll make it a quick story, but the thing that was ironic at the time, and of course, again, technology would only promote this. So technically you have to be licensed, have the FDA come and visit to make sure that what you're producing, because of the type of food product that a hot sauce is,
acidified food,
has certain requirements. You had to go through classes, like I said, all these requirements. We innocently wanted to, you want to test, you want to put your toe in the water, test the water a little bit. So we bottled them up and we went and sold, a couple $100 worth over a couple weekends. And then as we're going through the process, now this also is during COVID, we're going through the process and we couldn't really get a straight answer to how do you make it legit, so to speak.
Right.
It's not that it wasn't legit, because to your point, at a farmer's market, I could set up a table with my collection of baseball Pokemon cards and sell those.
Yeah.
Right. Or I could be, the example of foods that you can say, you can bring bread or cookies,
baked,
and that's not regulated.
Well, you have to be registered with Department of Agriculture. And they do a visit just for general cleanliness, that you're not, cooking in squalor, and that's easy to do.
Right. In our case, we had to have somebody examine what they call the, what's the process? The process authority letter, which is a series of steps. One of the key elements, just to, again, not to go too on about it, but your sauce has to be in the bottle at 180 degrees. You turn them upside down.
Has
so
to
that
be
headspace...
that a certain
becomes,
pH range.
Yes, and that makes the acidified food shelf stable.
Right.
So you're not, when you're getting our stuff or any of those types of products.
Right. It's
safe. They are safe. It's just shelf stable.
And we didn't know that at farmers markets, a lot of these people that run them, they don't know the ins and outs, and they didn't require that of us initially.
Well, we didn't get the right answers, but here the moral of this story is that because of technology, it was ironic that as we're going through the process, and you end up dealing with, here's the single point of contact for the state, and as we're asking questions and getting frustrated because we're getting 2 different answers or 3 different answers that didn't make any sense, individual we were dealing with followed and said, "Oh, by the way, I noticed that you guys are selling them because I see you on Facebook.
And you did a market on this date.
And by the way, you're not supposed to."
Yeah.
So as I was saying, we wanted. How do you even test the water?
Right.
And yeah, that's just it was beyond frustrating. Anyway, so I guess I see the clock on the wall.
Yeah.
Again, appreciate all the input. Any comments?
I had fun. Yeah.
And again, another episode of The Works. I'm Jim.
I'm Diane.
Toodaloo.
Bye.